Hello, and welcome to Xavier University. I'm Rachel Crastel. Today, we are honored to speak with Councilmember David Mann, who is a candidate for mayor of the city of Cincinnati. This interview is sponsored by Take It On, Xavier's nonpartisan initiative to encourage better dialogue and robust, peaceful engagement in politics. With me today is Michaela Connors, Vice President of the Student Government Association. So welcome, Councilmember Mann, and thank you for being here today with us here at Xavier.
Thank you. I really enjoy the opportunity.
So I'm going to hand this over to Vice President Connors for the first question.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, definitely. So the first question that we have for you today is, why should college students care about the mayoral election?
If you care about our city, you should care about who the mayor is. Obviously, we have a fairly small council, 9 people plus an elected mayor plus a city manager. And what we do impacts the life of students who either are from Cincinnati or visiting with us for 4 or 5 years while they're pursuing education. We have a city workforce of over 6,000 employees. We have an annual budget of $1.5 billion. We have 17 different departments that touch every aspect of community life. If there's ever a time to wonder about the impact or importance of local government, I would suggest this after last summer. We had, as I'm sure your students are aware, they probably were involved, many opportunities for folks to express their concern about the slowness of our society to finally put to rest racial disparities, which we've been burdened by for the history of our republic. So Cincinnati is not unique in that regard. So if you want to change the city or you change your piece of the world, if you're not involved politically, you're missing an opportunity to have an impact.
So our second question following up on that is, why should college students support your candidacy for mayor?
Well, people have to learn about me, I think, before they make that decision. And it's an important decision. There's 6 candidates, and a number of the candidates present qualifications, qualities, and all the rest. I've had the privilege of serving this country and this community in various capacities. Long ago, the Navy sent me to Harvard College, and then I owed the Navy 4 years back. And I was a Navy officer on a destroyer for 4 years. Then I went back to Harvard for law school, came back to my home community. I grew up in Northern Kentucky. And because of President Kennedy, who at his inauguration, as I listened fervently on black and white television, said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And I think it's an important thing for all of us to be mindful of. So I got involved in these campaigns. And then when Jerry Springer, who is a friend of mine, had his moment of disgrace, I was appointed to his seat on council. And then I served some 18 years, including 3 years as mayor. Then I was elected to Congress. 2 years later, I was unelected to Congress. I spent 20 years as a private citizen. And 8 years ago, became interested again in being involved. As I say to people, I lost my mind and ran for office, and the voters lost their mind and returned me back. So our city is really public service, and service to our community has been a big part of my life. And I think there's still work for me to do. I think I have a unique mix of experience that in philosophy that can be helpful. The next council is going to be one of the youngest, least experienced ever. I'm sure your students are aware that of the 9 of us that were elected 4 years ago, only 1 is eligible for to even be a candidate, Greg Landsman. The rest of us are either term limited or other reasons they can't run. So I think it matters a lot that the next mayor have some understanding of how to turn the light switches on from day one. And obviously, I alluded to some of the challenges we have in our city. We have a lot of poverty. We still have racial issues. Those need to be addressed right now because of some problems with some of my colleagues with indictments for violations, serious violations of law. We're lacking trust in government, which is pretty fundamental to good democracy. So those are the kinds of issues I think I can be helpful on. Obviously, jobs development, making our citizens believe that their government responds to them, is trying to address their problems. Those, in general, would be the things that I would be interested in. I think I can be helpful in a leadership role.
Most definitely. And you talk about your unique experience, and that's really like awesome. If you were to become mayor, what would you hope to see that's different about the city of Cincinnati by the time our first year students are seniors?
I would hope we have less poverty. I would hope we have more young people who feel like they're on a path to being participating, contributing members in our society. We've had a lot of conversation on the campaign trail about homicide rates amongst young people in Cincinnati. And we have this interesting dichotomy. On the one hand, violent crime has gone down quite a bit in the last 4 or 5 or 6 years. At the same time, homicides have gone up. And homicides are driven by the prevalence of guns. They're driven by, to me, a lot of mostly young men who don't feel connected to our society and don't see us a path by which they can be stable, contributing members. That's a function of the poverty they grew up in. It's a function of our educational system. It's a function of failing to provide a career path. And unless we address that, we're going to continue to have lost human beings, and that's very, very bad. So I would like to see changes in that. I would like to see more neighborhoods truly believing that City Hall is responsive to them, that City Hall cares about housing, cares about poverty, cares about connecting every neighborhood with City Hall through city services and the like. Jobs and development is obviously crucial to doing all we want to do with our city. And, you know, we've been through this pandemic, which is unlike anything any of us have been through. I talk about the pandemic, the post-pandemic world. It's not just a return to normal. I hope we go way beyond normal. And there's some signs that that's happening. The stimulus package that the federal government has offered is going to give the city of Cincinnati $291 million. And for us, that's big bucks. Our annual general fund budget is $400 million. So we got 3/4 of the annual budget in a one-time, or it's going to be spread over 2 years, payments over 2 years from the federal government. And there's some real opportunities there, not just to relieve the pain of the pandemic, make up for lost revenues for the city, make up for help businesses that have suffered and individuals have suffered, but I'm looking for some sort of dynamite transformational investment with, say, 10% of what we're getting, $29.1 million. And let's do something really exciting that has a long range effect. And we're about to send a survey out of my office, a monkey survey, and we're asking people to share their thoughts with us on a number of possible uses of the money, but also what would be your one big idea. So, and I'll be glad to send you the link if you'll tell me how to do that.
Yeah, please do. It's such an exciting time, you know, with that money coming for the city. And you know, to follow up on Vice President Connor's question, you know, I moved to Cincinnati. I've stayed here for 16 years. You know, you came back to Cincinnati. How will you help keep our students who have come to Xavier from elsewhere? How will you keep them in Cincinnati? What will make them stay?
Well, I think Cincinnati's a pretty exciting place. I mean, I've had the opportunity to travel through my time in the service, and my family and I've taken trips and so forth in and out of the United States. But you know, you can get all caught up in the excitement of New York City or Chicago or the West Coast or Washington D.C., where I spent 2 years. But you know, we've got a lot of stuff here. We've got geographic beauty. We have cultural institutions. We have history. We're an older city, actually, in terms of the whole history of the American Republic. And we have institutions, one of the oldest symphonies in the country, Hebrew Union College, the major corporations like P&G and Kroger and so forth. And in recent years, I had some folks come in on a law case from New York City. They were involved with the NAACP legal fund. I took them walking through OTR with all that's happened there in recent years, the streetcar and so forth. They said, "Hey, this looks like Brooklyn." I said, "Okay, come live with us." So I think we're doing a lot of things that are right, but unless those who visit or those who might be tempted to go elsewhere when they reach adulthood understand and feel that there are career opportunities, cultural opportunities, that it's really a neat place. There was just in the last couple of weeks, a story about an article in Vanity Fair by, and I don't, how do you pronounce, the movie producer that is related to Martin Sheen, and he has a Emilio Estevez. Okay, thank you. He lives in OTR, and he could live anywhere he wants to, and so he's talking up Cincinnati to his friends and saying, if he, unless you've tried it, don't reject it. So it's an unkept secret. So we just need to spread the secret.
Definitely. My parents are from Cincinnati. They left and then came right back. There's such a pull from this city. You discussed or mentioned you practicing law. When doing my research and just looking up other things, one of the main topics that you work with is civil rights and discrimination. How were those cases that you've worked on in the past shape your decisions and actions as mayor?
Well, I think I understand that despite all the laws that we've had the civil rights basic legislation was adopted in the 60s, and yet, just to remind us where we are, we had a Supreme Court decide in recent years that there was no longer a need to have the oversight of voting in the South, and now we see all the moves are being made to make voting in the South more difficult for, particularly for African Americans and low-income people. I guess the point is that despite all the laws, there are unfortunately a lot of people who in their soul feel, and I don't know what the reason is, the stereotypes that they've grown up in, their failure to be exposed on a personal level with folks of different ethnicities, different backgrounds and so forth. So they bring, we're seeing it now in our country with Asian Americans, and talk to Black citizens anywhere, including in Cincinnati, or follow the trial in Minneapolis just now, and we still unfortunately have a long way to go. So I learned in my work on discrimination cases that it's hard work to show discrimination, and it takes serious lawyering to get behind what people say and develop the evidence that proves that it's not quite what they say. So, but there are a lot of wonderful lawyers, including in Cincinnati, that have done great work in the area of civil rights discrimination, employment discrimination, and the like. So it's a field of law that unfortunately is needed, but there are lots of lawyers that practice it now and very successfully.
So Vice, thank you for that response. I really appreciate that. Vice President Connors is going to have our last question for you.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to share our thank you one more time for meeting with us this morning. My final question kind of rounds us out. And what advice would you give college students who are wanting to run in local politics, especially given your experience?
Well, I have to tell you my story, okay? So I come back to Cincinnati. I've just gotten out of law school. I'm kind of full of myself. I've got a job with a big downtown law firm. And there was a local favorite son, Jack Gilligan, who was running for the Senate. He later became our governor. And I walked into Gilligan headquarters and kind of said, well, hey, I'm here. I want to do some research. And we really appreciate your answers. Now, would you we got some yard signs we'd like you to put up. I said, you don't get it. I'm here to really give you my intellectual gifts. We understand would you please put the signs up? So I put the signs up, and then 2 years later, when Jack Gilligan was running successfully for the governor of the state, I was in charge of all the signs in Hamilton County. So that was my kind of my progression. And the point is, there's nothing more valuable to a campaign than somebody who has an interest, is willing to invest time and show up, and very quickly the opportunities present themselves. Now, so that was 2 years later, 3 years later, no, a year later, I was running the council ticket for the Democratic Party. 2 years after that, I was a candidate. And a year after that, there was an opportunity that led me to be appointed when Jerry Springer had a brief hiatus. So that's the path, and there's nothing magical about it. And then along the way, you meet people. I mean, I over the years, I've met people say, "I want to run for Congress." Well, what have you been doing? Well, I just got to town. Okay. Well, have you connected with folks active in the party? Have you connected with community groups? Well, why do you think? What do you know? What do you? Who are you going to talk to, and on what basis? So you need to know the community and have a sincere interest. But there's definitely a path. It's just a matter of pursuing your passion, and your passion will be founded in the belief that you can. You're willing to pay the sacrifice, and that you can make a difference in helping make this world better. And we each have to deal with our little piece of the world, and every day we ought to ask, okay, have I helped make anyone's life better today? Can I tomorrow? And that's kind of what I hope drives me, some days at least.
That's a really great way to sort of reflect on one's day and one's week and one's year, and what we're doing in life. So
yeah, absolutely.
So Councilmember Mann, I just want to thank you again for spending some time with us today, and for your many years of service on behalf of the citizens of Cincinnati.
Well, Xavier is a great institution. My wife and I talk about it often. Now our kids went elsewhere, but they all came back to Cincinnati, which is our oldest child is my law partner. So they lived elsewhere, but they saw as we were talking, the attraction of being here. And there's no substitute for being near family, and you realize that more and more as you as kids and grandkids come along. So anyway, I really enjoy being with you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Thank you.